D'Angelo Russell, it seemed like for the last he gets traded to the Lakers and they from the trade deadline on, Lakers make a little bit of a run, but his name was always in the trade rumors.
Mhm.
And listen, I'm guilty of this as well. I mean, every time I talked about D'Angelo Russell is more seeing, well, what can they get out of him in the trade market? What's his value in the trade market? Is the expiring contract really what people want? It wasn't about, hey, D'Lo is a player for the Lakers for the next 3-4 years. What's as D'Lo moves on? What do you walk away with D'Angelo Russell, his time with the Lakers, his kind of perception around the league? What's your take on D'Lo?
I liked D'Angelo Russell. I thought he was one of the most fun players in the league when he goes on a heater, when he really gets it going. And we saw a lot of it last season. I thought last season he was the third best Laker, put up 18 and 6, great percentages. We saw what he can be. But unfortunately, I think his presence was also a limiting factor when we look at the Lakers and where they can really get to, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. With the biggest issue simply being that D'Angelo Russell and Austin Reeves, the bottom line, they had too many weakness overlaps, and that was creating issues. So this was something that had to happen. It wasn't, a lot of people would say, oh, why do you want to trade D'Lo? No, it's not necessarily that I want to see the guy leave. What I'd like to see is everything work out great in LA. It was a cool comeback story that he was back with the team that drafted him. I wanted to see everything really click, but it just didn't. It just didn't. And the playoff performances were certainly disappointing that we saw from D'Angelo Russell. It's not like he played poorly his entire Lakers tenure, because he certainly did not. And frankly, they don't win the games that they won last season without D'Angelo Russell and his play. They will miss him. But last season, contractually, it was pretty clear that they had to put him on the trade market. And again, that was regardless of what the play on the floor said, contractually, he had to be in trade talks. The Lakers would have been insane not to, given the way his contract was. And then this year, as an expiring deal, again, he had to be in all these trade conversations. So we knew it was a matter of time, and it was the right thing for the Lakers to get to their ceiling. But I will miss D'Angelo Russell. Really enjoyed when D'Lo had it going. Again, there's few players in the NBA that are more fun to watch.
Do you think most? Because I think your opinion is, how do I put this? I feel like that thought of you enjoy D'Angelo Russell, that was more of the minority. Would you agree? Would you agree that from a Laker perspective, or in your interaction is a little bit different? But I feel like, and it's tough for me to not exclude my own opinion this, but I had mentioned this before. If D'Angelo Russell gets traded, I'm probably not going to lose sleep over it. Let me be honest with you. Last night, I was fine. I slept really well. Woke up this morning and I was good to go do the podcast. With that in mind, Trev, do you think a lot of Laker fans felt more how you felt, or do you think more Laker fans were ready to say, hey, let's move on from him?
I think it's more the latter. More Lakers fans were ready to move on, especially if it was the last 2 summers coming off of a weak playoff performance. I mean, a disastrous playoff performance 2 summers ago. It was after that, it was months of people just get D'Lo off this team. He's not going to do anything for us, and all that kind of stuff. And then this past summer too, it was a lot more of the same, that he simply isn't the guy that they need. I appreciate his game while just recognizing that the fit simply wasn't right here. But you're right. Yeah, it's not. Look, I think we've had so much time of him being in trade rumors that we all
like
knew
he
it was
already got traded.
Yeah, it was going to happen eventually. And so that, I think, lessens any kind of, attachment or whatever to the player. I think we all recognize, even if you liked D'Angelo Russell, there was recognition that something had to give here, and it was always going to be D'Angelo Russell. They weren't going to move, of the two that weren't really fitting together, Austin and D'Lo. They weren't going to move Austin on the contract that he's got. They were always going to be looking to move D'Lo on his contract.
All right, final one on D'Lo, and then we'll start moving on and looking at what the Lakers got in return. What is D'Angelo Russell in the NBA moving forward? What do you think his offseason is going to look like? What do you think? I'm just, he spent, obviously, with his first stint getting drafted by the Lakers, and then his last stint with the Lakers. Obviously, he spent some time in LA. What kind of player do you think D'Angelo Russell? What kind of market's going to be there for him in the offseason?
I think D'Angelo Russell is, and he's got an opportunity to put up numbers here with the Brooklyn Nets. I think what the market told him last year is that doesn't matter. The market has has decided what D'Lo is. Most teams don't need a point guard right now, and I could see him in more of like a six-man type role here coming out, which would mean six-man type money moving forward. Look, D'Angelo Russell had a player option last summer. If there was a long-term deal out there, he would not have picked up his player option. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I do think we're probably looking at maybe a little bit north of mid-level exception money for D'Angelo Russell and more of a six-man role on a team after this. Now, that said, again, he's going to get all the shots that he wants in Brooklyn. He's going to have a chance to put up big numbers. If he winds up somehow putting up, I don't know, 22-8 or something like that, maybe that changes it. But 18-6 clearly wasn't enough to move the market for him. So unless something drastic happens in Brooklyn, I think that we're going to see D'Angelo Russell on something of a bargain of a contract and maybe in a sixth man role on a team, depending on how, of course, everything all plays out from here on out.
Yeah, I think this trade also said a lot about kind of the identity the Lakers are trying to form. And by the way, I have no problem with it. You know, I spent a lot of time doing some of my post-game stuff or talking on this morning show. I feel like when JJ Redick became the coach, Lakers were trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is their identity? Mm-hmm. And early on, one of my concerns were, so we're just going to try to score 122 to 130 points a game. Like, I don't know if I like that strategy. But you're also trying to play with the personnel that you have and trying to figure out, okay, what is their greatest strength to winning? We've seen the Lakers over these last 8 games, they're 6-2. And Trev, I'm okay with, even if the game is a little bit more boring, I do feel like the Lakers have created somewhat of an identity. And they're basically saying, listen, if we're going to win games, we're going to try to do it on the defensive side. And hopefully guys can hit their threes and hopefully – players are in some type of a groove offensively, and Anthony Davis can drop you 35 and everything else. But we're going to hang our head on getting stops. Last night or yesterday, it was in the morning that the trade went down. I thought it further positioned the Lakers of, we're here to get stops. Now, granted, they got, Dorian Finney-Smith. I did not know this coming into yesterday that he's shooting 43% from the three-point line. But I'm just curious to get your thoughts. D'Lo goes out. He's obviously known defensively as not being a player that plays defense. He's not the only one. I mean, listen, it's not like Austin Reeves and Dalton Connect or Gary Payton and, name whatever other guard that you want to think of in that regard. Hi, Stu. That's Stu, right?
Yeah, Stu the studio cat checking in.
Stu, welcome.
Saying welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, no, Stu's, it's more about the defensive presence. I got into the defensive presence, and then Stu's like, I want to talk about this. What do you make of the philosophy that the Lakers are leaning more and more on becoming a defensive, gritty? Dorian Finney-Smith's definitely going to bring some of that, but it's a drastic difference between the two players of what D'Lo brought and what Dorian Finney-Smith is going to bring.
Yeah, it really is a very drastic difference, like you said, between the two guys. I think that what's interesting to me, Alan, you talk about going defense and is that, less exciting? I think NBA fans right now are saying, no, it's not less exciting. I mean, it's an extreme example, but look at the All-Star game, all scoring, no defense, and people hate it. Like, it's not fun. I would rather watch a team that's going to make great defensive rotations, that's going to make hustle plays, and they're going to put up 105 points than a team that's going to do none of that and put up 120. So I actually think the Lakers are more exciting when they dig in defensively. And I see Max Christie make an insane closeout and get a hand up right in the face of Malik Monk. And maybe he hits the shot and you just tip your cap. But I like seeing them flying all over the floor on the defensive side of the ball and making life hell for their opponents. I think that is fun. But here's what really strikes me, Alan, is when we talk about the team forging their identity, I've felt like all along the Lakers have needed to, whether or not they have been consciously trying to do this, have needed to go back to the build style that they had in 2020, back when the whole team was about we're defensive, we're athletic, we're going to beat you up. And we're going to be the bigger, stronger, faster team, and we're going to be a pain in the ass to score on, and that's going to be kind of our identity. I felt like they needed to get back to that 3-and-D athletes around LeBron and AD, it's the winning combination. And what strikes me, Alan,
and big men,
and
right?
bigs, right?
The size, yep, behind AD.
Exactly. Having that physicality, which I think is perhaps the next step for the Lakers on the trade market. But what strikes me is that Dorian Finney-Smith would have been a perfect fit on that 2020 team, right? He's got, that's the style of player that he is. And that's what I like about this. I think this is a step in that direction. It's also a step towards fixing a problem with the team. And a problem with the team was that they had all one-way players, all guys who could play offense or defense, not both. Dorian Finney-Smith plays both. So he checks a number of boxes for me, and I think he does fit more towards the new mindset of the team, which is the old mindset of the team that they probably should have never gone away from.